Welcome back to Layers, everyone. After a couple week of break, we were on holiday.
Easter holiday.
Exactly, we're back with a new and super interesting topic, which is Sophie's thesis, and we thought it would be interesting to share it with you because um, the design of spaces that promote presence and emotional balance has become a crucial concern in interior design and interior architecture due to this constant stimuli and cognitive overload that characterizes the present era. So we thought it would be interesting. It's a little bit of a complicated topic, I would say, but we prepared some questions and Sophie prepared herself.
Not that much, so I will have my notes to help me because I did this research almost like not a year ago, but like almost.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I try to reduce as much as possible what the important things that are useful to explain in an easier, simpler way the topic.
Yeah, because it's not simple, so we also want to reach a broader.
Yeah, I hope that I can make myself
Yeah.
understand as much as possible, but we will see.
Okay. I'll start with the first question, which is a little bit more of a personal one, let's say,
Okay.
which is what motivated you to explore contemplative neuroscience in interior architecture?
So I've always been interested in how the human mind works, and so I've always been interested in psychology, neuroscience, even since high school. My thesis in high school was about neuroscience as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but related to criminals. So
Okay.
now it's like a change, but I wanted now to connect the neuroscience part with interior architecture. So that was the start. And then before doing my research, I came across a book that was kind of a key of inspiration.
Okay.
And that I actually read for another class that we did in uni.
Which class?
The first one, research seminar.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That we also had to do a small research, and I come across this book. So it kind of then to do my thesis, I went back to look at it, and it's kind of a key. And it's from Gaston Bachelard.
Okay.
Francois.
Petit français.
Yeah. And the book is called The Poetic of Space. And an interesting part is where it explains or represent the home, not just a physical structure, but has space that holds memory, shape identity, and push imagination. So from that, I wanted to start to actually like um, try to explain how the human mind works inside a space, how architecture is not neutral, but it actually affects how we feel, how we perceive, and how we move, and also our emotions. So that was the beginning.
I mean, that's super interesting because I feel a lot of times we consider like everything like as separate fields, but it's so much interconnected. Like psychology, even I was applying to the studio in the studio briefing, they said that in the team there's also an anthropologist, so someone that is studying like people's culture and environment to help design space.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting because the correlation is pretty strong. To have a little bit of a clearer understanding. Sorry. What is neuroscience and how and why is it related to interior design? You already said it a little bit. If you can maybe make a little bit more clarity.
So in the research, oh my god, also my voice is going to zero. Okay, that's fine. I use neuroscience and neuroaesthetics, which are related. But in this case, neuroscience and in the specific neuroaesthetics is a field that studies how the brain responds to aesthetic experiences. So how we perceive and how we emotionally react to art, design, and spaces in general. Um, and it's especially relevant today, as you mentioned before, because we live in a highly stimulating area. And so, particularly in cities, with stress and mental fatigue is increasing every year. So, we really need spaces where we could recharge and reflect. And it's important to use an interdisciplinary approach. So use to create spaces, use other disciplines like neuroscience to have a strong base and really try to design in a specific way that it could be effective. And so neuroaesthetics helps us to understand how design elements affect our mental and emotional state. And this really opens up new possibility for interior design, especially because it's a new discipline. So it also needs to be explored more.
I love how we always circle back to this thing, because it's true, interior design is super new as a discipline, and it's not like, let's say, protected discipline like architecture, like especially as a title. So yeah, I think we need more combination of sciences as well, to understand it better,
because it's not just about painting a wall.
it's not just about that.
It really affects how people live, and a lot, because little details can make such a big difference. So that's really important. And we do research, and we put together research and
the research part is probably one of the crucial parts that we've already mentioned in our design workflow. And you mentioned contemplation a lot, as well as different stimuli. So how did you define contemplation in your research?
So contemplation is understood as a state of focused awareness, so attention to the present moment, and it's a state of clarity and emotional balance. And psychologically, it's linked to a reduced mental distraction, and so a sense of calm and attention. And what is important is that contemplation is not just an internal state, but it's strongly influenced by the environment, especially if you're not into meditation or mindfulness, which takes long time to improve and to makes it easier for you to reach it in, I don't know, outside in a park where there are a lot of stimuli. So contemplation is more for also like normal people, or normal people, not normal people, but what I mean, people who are not in that kind of thing. So they can just go through a space and reach this state in an easy way as well.
Not everyone is trained for yoga, meditation.
If you're trained, maybe the environment is not that important, even if it's still important, but not maybe as but if you're not trained, the environment still has a really important part of the contemplative state.
And what are the main pathways to achieve these states, like even in interiors or personal, like in your research?
Yeah, so in the research, I focus on two separate kind of stimuli. So the internal ones, which are, for example, bodily relaxation or focused breathing, the kind of the techniques that you use also for meditation and mindfulness, but are connected with contemplation, and or like focused slow movement, and it could be like walking as well, or emotional regulation. And then there are the external factors, which are connected with architecture or interior design or the space that surrounds us. And neuroscience shows that we constantly shift between our inner state and responding to what's around us. So they're not separate, these two stimuli, but they're connected, and they're always um, interacting. So the idea is that architecture can use external stimuli to guide the process of contemplation and help also this internal stimuli to happen.
Okay, so to make it more accessible,
Yeah.
To everyone, let's say. So, I mean, you talk about interior, exterior.
Yeah.
I think so. From what I understood, architecture and interior design are more related to the exterior one. And so, how can architecture or interior design act as a trigger to this contemplative, like for contemplation? Like, is there something maybe more?
Yeah, for like architecture can act as a trigger for contemplation by guiding our attention through a sensory experience.
Okay.
So it's not just about how the space looks, but how we move, how we perceive the materials, the light, how we transition through it. So there are a lot of details we can use to help reach contemplation. For example, when I started doing my research, I found um, I made a list, an initial list, but now I'll just like go through three that I find interested.
Okay.
For example, there was order, and order plays an important role for contemplative spaces. Um, for order, I mean repetition, symmetry, a visual clarity, and this in this case, the mind doesn't have to work a lot to process the space, so you're more calm, and it's easier for you to relax, and for emotional regulation, attention, and this was an important element that you can use in architecture.
So the first one is order. I mean, a lot of people say that if you live even like if you're in a period of roughness or something, cleaning the house or putting order in the house helps the brain.
Yeah.
Because it feels like if you clean the house and everything is organized and in order, like you're also in your brain, you're more relaxed in some way.
Because our mind is trained to recognize patterns, and that also translates into architecture and the space where you live as well. Another one which is interesting is movement. For example, architecture can guide us through the space, creating paths or sequences or changes in direction, and how you design and really create an experience, and helps you also, you can regulate the path of the people who are entering your space based on how you design it. So that's really helpful, and it's connected to, it can help these in internal stimuli to happen as well. And for example, I don't know if you went to how's it called? There's a museum in Paris, Orange. No, was it? Yeah, that one was designed to in like infinite shape. I think I'm if I'm not mistaken, but like the design of the museum was actually like designed to help this contemplative state and to help the visitor to focus on the painting. And then another one which is interesting is the threshold, which I don't know, I didn't pay attention to before that much. But when you transition to a space to another, your mind kind of resets. So it helps you prepare and pay more attention to the space where you're entering. So that also could be helpful for contemplation because you're preparing yourself while you move from a space to another one.
I haven't thought about thresholds because we did do an exercise in the first year that we needed to choose a threshold.
Yeah.
And that was like, let's say, my first experience with this. And this is super interesting because they're kind of crucial, even if nobody pays attention to those. Like, oh, it's just a door, or you're just moving from one space to another. But actually, it helps a lot, even with people maybe with disabilities or autistic people. Like, it's a very important step because, especially for them to transition from one space, maybe different colors or a pattern. So,
yeah,
this is very interesting.
These are three that, but there are more. Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, you said that there were a lot when even in your thesis, you described a lot. So this aesthetic triad, I would say, we call it like this.
Yeah, that is the next part of the research.
Okay.
So to understand more how this aesthetic experience happens, and basically it's interesting, this aesthetic triad, because it explains how aesthetic experience arises through the interaction of three systems, which are the sensory motor system, then the knowledge meaning system, and then the emotional valuation system. So the sensory motor system grounds experience in the body. And so architecture is actively engaging through movement and a multisensory perception. And it creates a continuous loop between action and perception. And this supports attention through the experience.
Okay.
Then the knowledge meaning system shapes interpretation.
Okay.
So we talk about memory, culture, familiarity, which influence how spaces are understood. So, for example, in this case, it means that aesthetic experience is context dependent and not fixed. So it depends on the context and what is inside.
Okay.
And also your culture. So it's very subjective as well in this case. And then the last one is the emotion evaluation system, which brings this together and assign an effective significance. So emotion emerge when you put the first two together. Then based on the first two, the emotion emerge. And so this system constantly interacts, and then the aesthetic experience emerge, and based on this three, it could bring to contemplation as well, or another different kind of experience based on what you want to achieve. That's what it is.
Let's put it in like very very in summary.
Yeah, it was
but
so
I think I understood.
It was difficult to summarize everything, but in this part it was more research, really research driven, and also with empirical studies again for each of the three parts as well, for the three systems.
Aesthetic triad. I love the name though. Aesthetic triad.
Yeah.
at the beginning, I was like, when I first read the term, I was like, "Oh, what is that? What is that?" It was like, um, and so I mean, we saw now this kind of role that this aesthetic trial, sorry. But if we go more like deeper into the analysis, are there any principles that architects or designers can use to foster this contemplative states, and like how like this external and stimuli like and in interior stimuli like can be processed in like in practice?
So at the end of the research, I came up with a list of possible principles or elements that you can use inside a space um, to reach contemplation, and I saw how each of those could help with the each of the internal stimuli that I found in the first part of the research, which were, for example, slow movement, breathing, emotional regulation, body relaxation. So at the end, the list is, for example, there's archetypes which are connected to, for example, the knowledge meaning system, because we were talking about memory, culture, and familiarity. So, for example, archetypes or rhythm, movement, as I mentioned before, order, minimalism as well.
Okay, yeah, this is also minimalism, order, like I can
which
see
are
like
connected.
yeah, pattern of.
And then the threshold, also light could help, and openness, also sound for contemplation in architecture is very important. Then materiality as well, it's another fundamental element that you have to consider. Also smell, that in interior architecture is not that
it's a little bit overlooked.
yeah, and but it's also important. And then nature and fractal patterns. So this is the list of points where you can focus, and when all these features are combined, the space can actually, you don't have to use them all. It's based on the project that you have, but the more you use, the more it's easy then to create a space, a contemplative space at the end.
Which is interesting because you, for your thesis project, you didn't build, or not build, but you transformed this church here in Berlin into like a spa with which is a pretty contemplative space, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because church is also a contemplative space made of materiality, even the silence of the church, this even though it's super big, and you kind of transformed it into a spa, which I thought was super interesting. It was an amazing project. And it's kind of connected to your research because at the end they're connected. And I was wondering if the like your theoretical research, like how did it inform your project and your design decisions, and like which kind of external, because at the end we're designing here, so we're talking about external stimuli, did you use more, or were there some that you wanted to use you did?
Yeah. So for example, I focused a lot of movement. So how the visitors would have go through the experience, the spa, the contemplative sanctuary. So and that it was I really focused on that because it was important, because there was a really specific path that they had to follow. But it was difficult because I was working with an already existing building, so the process to arrive at the final design was really difficult, and still maybe probably it's not the best path because of the building or the limitations of the building. But I tried my best, and I think at the end it worked well. Another one,
maybe like it did.
another one is light and rhythm. For example, I used the organ, the already existing organ in the church. I repurposed the organ and I transform it into lighting elements. And I place them inside the space along the old path, and they guide the visitor inside the space. And based also on the rhythm of the light, there are different kind of rooms and different kind of activities. So it helps to guide the experience. It sets a certain atmosphere through the light, and also it sets a certain rhythm. The part of the rhythm it could have been explored more, not just through lights, but maybe also, I don't know, patterns in the pavement or through the facade. So it could have been explored more, but that was a little bit difficult as well. I explore materiality a lot.
I was about to ask because I remember you.
Materiality and texture. So every room changed based on the experience, and materiality was an important one of the most important focus on each room, and then nature. The last one I think also had a strong impact because the church was located close to Tiergarten in Berlin. So it had a part that really was facing the park, which was really nice. And so, for example, I connected. There were two buildings initially, and so I connected the two buildings with corridor with a glass facade. So you had the possibility to really enhance the nature on both sides, on the inner courtyard of the church and also on the park, and that really create as well a calming effect.
New threshold, a new longer threshold to connect the buildings.
But the threshold, that was I completely like overlooked. I feel that could have been like really explored, and I didn't a lot. Wasn't my focus. If I will go back, maybe I will focus as well on more on that.
I mean, you did create a new threshold to connect the buildings. Maybe we didn't think about that because you just added this just randomly. But sometimes like you do random things, but actually like
without
thinking. But then like if you think about it, it is a threshold because you're connecting one building to the other in an outside way. Okay, threshold, like we could consider that a threshold, I would say. But I think I think it was already a lot of elements in your project that, and they were so well combined at the end that I personally didn't feel that anything was missing. I was like, when can I go to the spa? This contemplative space, I want to go there. But yeah, I really enjoyed also the materiality and all this stimuli that you also integrated, like the textures, the lights. I really
also archetypes. I use archetypes in the project because I kept all the meaning elements of the church, the symbols, and I repurposed them. So that was also a thing that have been used to create this sense of familiarity, or I don't know, engage memory and imagination. So create more attention with the space and maybe more to help people feel more connected.
I think you talked also about the lights in the path, but I also really enjoyed. So there's this huge no, it's not a window. It's, how do you call it? Like
the
this.
facade?
Yeah, there's this facade which is made out of glass where you designed the pool.
Yeah.
And I think the lighting there is also super nice because lights go in and like with the water as well. The main swimming pool is also creating like this, I don't know, sparkles and atmosphere. And based on the light, you also have different atmospheres. And I think you mentioned that light is also very important. And I think also in the pools, and you had a darker pool at the beginning, like with different water temperatures. Look at me.
She knows how many. we repeated this project so many times. I feel I could explain yours and you can explain mine.
I feel like, I mean, we were in the process together and we were basically like designing everything and like we were like consulting each other all the time, that I feel like, and we helped each other doing the models and cutting. At a certain point, I remember I was like, okay, you do mine and I do yours, because we were like so tired.
I did with the clay in your sink. It was so fun.
Yeah, and I was like cutting the darker roofs because I was like, hey, I'm better at cutting, you're better at this.
Yeah. me with a cut. How do you call it? Cutter? With a cutter? No. No.
It was super funny. We were like meeting, like, okay, if you need me to explain also her project, I can do that. Yeah, okay. So you use all those principles as well in your project. Was there one that was more challenging than others? The ones you said?
Probably movement, because of the existing building. Probably movement, and then nature and archetypes were really easy to use.
Okay.
So I would say movement.
Was it also your favorite? Was it the most challenging and your favorite, or
no, it was the most challenging.
Okay. Did you have a favorite though to use? I don't know.
Archetypes. I had the most fun with those.
We're gonna leave you as well, like some collages of that Sophie made, because they're beautiful, to explain a little bit how she used like proper research in her project. Okay. So to summarize everything a little bit up, what is the relationship like at the end of your conclusion, let's say, of this relationship between interior and exterior to achieve like the contemplative state? To summarize it.
Based on the research that I did, they're really, really connected. Each of the external stimuli could have a strong impact of the internal ones in different and many ways. But the thing is that I think my research is a bit of like a starting point. At the end, I had more questions than answers. I feel, and also like talking and explaining. At the end, it was about more really a starting point to more questions and more I don't know, points to really explore. But at the end, yeah, it was just a proof that really you have to focus on every little detail, and every little, even a small was, can have an impact on how you feel. And yeah, that was it. But then I feel like it could be this research. My research could be the first chapter of an actual research for this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same for mine, because it's so broad, and like every little thing that you explore could be like huge other.
Yeah.
Look at us, PhD. let's just continue it. But I think like everything is still could be explored more and more. And I mean, research is basically never ending. Like contributing to the body of knowledge is basically never ending because it's very important. We always underestimate research, but you know what I was thinking? Do you think that interior design or architecture classes like university should have also maybe a psychology class integrated instead of like just basic
Yeah, I do. Not just because we are creating spaces for people.
I was like,
no, I was thinking like we have to create spaces for like most of the time for people. So you have to know how people think, how they perceive space once they're inside, and in order to create a space that actually function in a proper way, like not just be there cute, but actually like gives you something else. So we do. And then also because we're actually also, when we design, we have to deal with people as well.
that is
So
true.
I think it's you have to know also because of that.
Yeah, I think it would be very interesting to integrate this as a subject in university, or even to collaborate. Like that's what I found very interesting in the studio because they collaborate and they have an anthropologist, which is like studying people and culture especially. But I think it's really important to have someone that also knows and studies and has proper knowledge also on the impact and how the brain works, because the way at the end the brain is like probably the most important organ because it's like connecting everything, and it's how where we think and process things, and spaces also have been processed, and like the emotion is because of something like I don't want to be technical because I don't know. But like all the nerves and stuff like this, what attracts us, what also why do we think a space is cute? Like there are reasons that are real reasons, not just I like it because I don't know it's cute. So I think it would be very interesting.
Yeah. Also, like architecture, they use engineers to build the 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 the, the buildings. Why interior design? Just interior design alone. Why you cannot like put together other people to create like an actual space that works?
We should find someone that studies psychology and ask them like some questions.
Yeah.
If you study psychology, I know some people, but they don't live here. If not, I would have said, guys, invited to the next episode. But yeah, I think you're right. A figure like that is or should be important to design the space and create something meaningful. To conclude this episode, which I thought, and I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting topic, and it's very broad, and it's bringing up a lot of things that are also going a little bit outside interior design, but in a more of a science, neuroscience realm. In your personal life, this is more of a personal question since it's a little bit of an interview mode as well. What layers of yourself are you currently exploring?
That's a difficult question.
Love how everyone starts with that's a difficult
question. I was thinking about it, and I feel like I'm exploring my boundaries, I would say.
Okay.
I try to go with the flow, but I feel like I'm not built for that. I don't like the flow. I don't like the flow. So I'm really trying to understand and really understand where I want to put my energy and my time, and really trust my instinct and how I feel, and not leave it there and just do the things without actually like trusting myself and what I feel. So I would say that.
This is very interesting. Like
Yeah.
this long answer.
Yeah.
That's good. You, why are you not
No, but
like, you know your boundaries, please?
I don't know if I know them, but I didn't. I didn't. So I sometimes I just like then went crazy because I didn't trust what I was feeling. So now I'm gonna do just what I
Okay, you're not gonna do just what you want because you always do just what you want. So, but okay.
But in this recent time, because before I wasn't like that. I was going with the flow and it didn't work.
I think we don't work just with the flow. Like we need a
No.
little bit some, like
Going with the flow
some.
it's bullshit.
We are in our Sex and the City Berlin version era,
Okay.
so you can explore and not go with the flow, but Sophie's version.
Sophie's version of fun.
Okay. I think this was it for today.
Yeah.
I hope it was interesting for you. It definitely was for me. Also to experience more the Sophie's research, which was very complicated.
That's all for me.
Of course. But yeah.
Okay.
See you next time.
Bye.